Tonight, we are diving into a story unlike anything we've covered before. A story that has exploded across the internet with such emotional force that it has left millions of viewers speechless, stunned, and deeply affected. This is not just another celebrity moment or trending topic. This is a collision of trust, heartbreak, personal vulnerability, and public scrutiny that has spiraled into a viral phenomenon. And at the center of this emotional hurricane stands Kandi Burruss, a woman who has long symbolized resilience, strength, and poise, now facing a situation that no one, absolutely no one, could have seen coming. What began as faint whispers, subtle hints, and quiet speculation erupted into a full-scale emotional firestorm when someone she once trusted, someone who was once part of her inner circle, publicly denied something Kandi reportedly holds close to her heart. The result is a drama so raw, so human, and so emotionally gripping that audiences aren't just watching, they're feeling every moment alongside her. In the whirlwind of stories circulating online, fans describe Kandi as being in a state of overwhelming panic and disbelief. Imagine for a moment trusting someone so deeply that you allow yourself to hope, to believe, to imagine a future shaped by a shared connection, only to have that trust shattered publicly, loudly, and mercilessly. According to social media commentary and fan interpretations, Kandi allegedly believed she was carrying something deeply meaningful, the beginning of a new chapter that should have brought warmth and joy. But instead of support, confirmation, or even compassion, she found herself confronted with a denial so sharp, so unexpected, that it felt like a punch straight to the chest. Don Juan, a figure once viewed as close to her, reportedly stepped into the public eye and contradicted everything Kandi believed to be true, and that single denial, delivered with absolute finality, triggered a storm that has yet to settle. The internet responded instantly. Within minutes, timelines across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook caught fire as users shared reactions ranging from shock to heartbreak to outrage. People began posting screenshots, circulating quotes, and dissecting every detail of the unfolding situation. Hashtags trended worldwide as fans poured out their sympathy, confusion, and emotional investment. Many expressed that they could see the pain etched across Kandi's expressions, her pauses, her silence, her subtle gestures that hinted at an emotional burden far heavier than words could describe. Others questioned Don Juan's intentions, parsing through every public statement or past interaction in an attempt to unravel the truth. Some fans called the situation tragic, cruel, even heart-wrenchingly real, arguing that no amount of fame or attention could possibly prepare someone for the pain of being doubted so publicly about something so personal. But what makes this story different from typical online drama, and what has pushed it into viral, unforgettable territory, is not simply the denial itself, it's the emotional weight behind it. Audiences are responding not to facts or statements, but to the deeply human emotions at play. They're reacting to the vulnerability Kandi appears to be showing, the rawness of her emotional expression, and the unmistakable sense of betrayal that many believe they can see unfolding in real time. This is not a scripted reality show moment. It is not a PR stunt or a manufactured scandal. This is a portrayal of heartbreak that feels too genuine, too relatable, and too painful to ignore. For countless viewers, Kandi's apparent emotional collapse mirrors experiences from their own lives, moments when trust was broken, when someone they cared for denied them, when reality clashed brutally with hope. As the story spread, private conversations allegedly leaked online, fan theories multiplied, and every new rumor seemed to intensify the emotional turmoil surrounding Kandi. Her situation, once personal, became public in a matter of hours, transforming her panic into a global spectacle. What began as whispers behind the scenes erupted into an uncontrollable flood of speculation, analysis, and emotional projection. Friends, family, supporters, and critics weighed in, each adding new layers of complexity to an already overwhelming situation. The pressure mounted not just because of the claims being made, but because the world demanded answers before Kandi could even process her own feelings. It is a moment that highlights the darker side of public attention, the way deeply personal experiences can be magnified, scrutinized, and absorbed into online discourse before the person living through them has had time to breathe. Fans watching this emotional unraveling unfold online didn't just comment, they empathized, they connected, they internalized what they believed Kandi was going through. The emotional attachment became a force of its own, driving engagement at an unprecedented rate as viewers shared their own stories of denial, betrayal, and heartbreak. So many people commented that they had lived through something similar, that they knew exactly what that kind of panic felt like. And suddenly, Kandi's story was no longer just hers. It became symbolic, a representation of universal experiences, a mirror held up to anyone who has ever loved someone who let them down. That universality is what transformed this moment from gossip into an emotional event with cultural resonance. Meanwhile, Don Juan's public denial added fuel to the fire. Some viewers speculated that he was hiding something. Others believed he was telling the truth. Still others wondered whether the entire situation had been blown out of proportion by the infinite echo chamber of social media. The confusion, the uncertainty, and the absence of clear answers allowed the drama to grow uncontrollably, feeding a cycle of viral engagement that refused to slow down. Every time someone thought the story had reached its peak, a new angle emerged. Another post, another theory, another leaked screenshot, sparking yet another wave of emotional reactions. At the center of all of this stands Kandi Burruss, hurt, vulnerable, exposed, yet still fighting to remain composed. And it is that duality, the combination of her visible panic and her underlying strength, that has captivated so many people around the world. In her eyes, fans say they see a storm of disbelief, sorrow, and confusion. In her silence, they hear questions that have no easy answers. In her trembling voice, they sense the kind of emotional weight that can crush even the strongest of hearts. And yet, in her determination to continue speaking, to continue showing up, to continue facing the chaos, fans see resilience, a quiet power that holds her together even when the world seems to be falling apart around her. What began as a single denial has grown into a multi-layered emotional saga, one that reveals how fragile trust can be when exposed to public scrutiny. It demonstrates how quickly private pain can become public entertainment, and how devastating that transformation can be. It also highlights the intense emotional bond between public figures and their fans. People did not just react, they participated. They commented, debated, theorized, defended, and empathized. They became part of the narrative, and in doing so, they blurred the line between spectator and participant, transforming this moment into a shared emotional experience that transcends the individuals involved. However, the entertainment world froze solid when Don Juan Clark stepped into the courtroom. Not stormed, stepped, quietly, calmly, like a man walking into a burning building while knowing full well that he was the one holding the match. What stunned people wasn't his arrival, it was the expression on his face. It wasn't anger or pride or revenge. It was the hollow, resigned look of someone who had carried a truth so heavy it carved itself into his bones. Someone who knew that once he opened his mouth, nothing, not friendships, not reputations, not families, would ever be the same again. And in a room packed tight with attorneys, reporters, and people bracing for routine testimony, he spoke the confession fans had spent years theorizing about but never believed they'd hear uttered out loud. He said the DNA report was real. He said Ace and Blay weren't Todd's children. He said they were his. The silence that followed wasn't quiet, it was suffocating, a silence that pressed down on everyone in that courtroom like a 1,000-pound weight, crushing any hope that this was all a misunderstanding. But the truth? That wasn't even the explosion. That was only the spark, the flicker that ignited a bomb fans didn't know was sitting beneath their reality TV universe. When Don Juan continued, the courtroom changed. It shifted from a place of legal procedure to a confessional chamber, where every hidden truth in the room felt like it was crawling up the walls, desperate to escape. He revealed a secret relationship, one that didn't just precede the wedding, but continued long after vows were exchanged, rings were worn, and the world was told a story of unity and stability. Don Juan described late-night messages, quiet visits, whispered conversations that slipped behind the curtain of televised perfection. He spoke of moments disguised as harmless interactions, lingering glances backstage, private jokes shared just off-camera, subtle shifts in tone when someone walked into the room. And he didn't speak like a man bragging or blaming. He spoke like someone carrying years of guilt, someone who had held on to a truth that ate at him in the dark. Every word he said cut deeper than the last, not because of scandal, but because of the quiet, brutal honesty behind it. And as he spoke, the illusion fans thought was unbreakable shattered so violently that people online didn't know whether to scream, cry, or freeze in disbelief. The internet didn't react, it erupted. Within seconds, timelines transformed into war zones of disbelief, heartbreak, rage, and shock. Fans typed as if their fingers were racing against their own confusion. Screenshots spread with lightning speed. Old footage resurfaced, clips people had forgotten about, small interactions once dismissed as harmless. Suddenly, those moments looked different. The way Kandi smiled when Don Juan hovered near her, the way they whispered backstage, as if finishing conversations that didn't belong to the world, the nervous laughter, the tension when Todd's name came up, the evasive glances. Fans saw them all now under a different light. What had once been dismissed as Bravo-style drama suddenly felt like foreshadowing, like clues that were always right there but overlooked because the storyline had been so carefully crafted. And now that carefully curated narrative lay in pieces. The images of unity, the interviews about loyalty, the smiles held for cameras, all of it felt like props in a staged production covering a much darker truth. When medics rushed to help Kandi after she collapsed, the room spun into chaos, but Todd stood frozen, silent, unmoving, devastated. His expression wasn't one of anger or shock. It was the hollow, distant look of a man watching the world he trusted crumble beneath his feet. He didn't lash out, he didn't accuse, he didn't even blink. Because heartbreak that deep doesn't scream, it sinks. It buries itself inside a person until they can barely breathe under the weight of it. And when Don Juan revealed that Kandi had confided in him, confessions about the cracks in her marriage, words that sliced through Todd's dignity, the entire internet held its breath. That wasn't just betrayal, that was humiliation, emotional destruction, a wound so deep that no therapy session or apology could ever fully mend it. Todd's silence became the loudest part of the entire collapse. His stillness felt like a scream trapped inside a man who had loved with everything he had, only to discover the story he believed in wasn't the story he was living. As if the day hadn't already detonated reality TV history, the leaks began. Fast, relentless, ruthless. The first was a voice note, 12 seconds of someone crying, breath shaking, whispering, "I can't hide this anymore." Fans dissected every sound, every breath. Was it Kandi? Was it Don Juan? Was it someone else entirely? Someone who had been orbiting the truth from the shadows? Then came the second leak, a screenshot, not explicit, but devastating. A late-night message from Kandi to Don Juan reading, "He's not home. Come now." No emojis, no explanation, just urgency that didn't need a caption. Fans lost their minds. TikToks analyzing timestamps went viral. Reaction videos exploded across platforms. People stitched old interviews with new implications, painting a timeline darker than anything Bravo had ever aired. Inside Kandi's inner circle, panic spread like a contagion. People who had pledged loyalty for years suddenly looked terrified. Old texts were deleted, phones wiped clean, alibis rehearsed with trembling voices. Because Don Juan's confession didn't just imply betrayal, it hinted at layers beneath the surface, layers involving more people than anyone realized. Someone inside finally snapped under the pressure, leaking anonymous messages onto smaller gossip pages that exploded like grenades. One message read, "They weren't careful. They thought he'd never find out." Another said, "Those kids changed everything. The guilt ate them alive." And then a third message appeared, the darkest of them all. The truth was never meant to stay buried this long. Fans didn't sleep after that. They camped in comment sections, piecing clues together like digital detectives. The story was no longer entertainment, it was a storm. Back home, Todd sat alone in the living room that once felt filled with memories. Now it felt poisoned. Every photo looked like a lie. Every moment felt twisted into something he no longer recognized. When his phone buzzed nonstop, he didn't answer. He didn't want sympathy. He didn't want to explain. He wanted the truth, the raw, unfiltered truth, yet receiving it had shattered him instead of setting him free. Hours later, he finally touched his phone. Hundreds of messages, support, outrage, apologies, questions. But one message froze him completely. An unknown number wrote, "You deserve to know everything. Meet me." No name, no explanation, no emotion. Just an invitation or a warning. Todd set the phone down again because the weight of what he already knew felt unbearable enough. Then came the leak that sent shockwaves through the entire internet, a typed document, a timeline, dates, times, events that lined up too perfectly with Don Juan's confession. Fans matched those dates with public appearances, social media posts, interviews, and suddenly the story no longer looked like a moment of weakness. It looked like a double life stretching farther back than anyone imagined. People felt sick, betrayed, glued to their screens. Even Kandi's die-hard defenders fell silent. The timeline painted a picture no imagination could soften. And as if the world hadn't already been shaken enough, the final audio clip dropped. A woman's trembling voice whispering, "He can never know. If he finds out, everything ends." It didn't matter who said it. Everything ended anyway. The hours that followed didn't feel real. Fans weren't scrolling out of curiosity. They were scrolling because they were terrified of what might drop next. Every notification felt like another truth waiting to slash through the remnants of the story. Reporters camped outside homes. Producers scrambled to piece together new narratives. Former cast members either stayed silent or quietly reached out to networks, terrified of being dragged into a fallout that looked more like a reality TV apocalypse than a typical scandal. Kandi remained silent. No statement, no denial, no apology. Just silence so heavy it felt like a confession on its own. Some said she was hospitalized. Others claimed she was hidden away by her team. A few whispered she was refusing to speak at all. But the truth didn't matter as much as the silence. The silence fed the fire. Todd moved through his home like a ghost. At one point, he picked up a picture frame, a birthday photo filled with smiles, and wondered how many people in that picture knew the truth long before he did. The idea that he had been living at the center of a secret so massive made him feel more alone than he had ever felt in his life. And now, if you're still here, if you're still staring at the wreckage spread across timelines, across headlines, across comment sections, then you already understand that this story isn't finished, not even close. The confession was only the first explosion. The leaks were only the aftershocks. There are still voices unspoken, messages unread, screenshots buried in phones someone is terrified to unlock. There are people who know the full truth, people who have stayed silent because speaking would crack the ground beneath them. As the emotional storm continues to circle around Kandi Burruss, viewers around the world remain fixated on every new development. The stakes feel enormous, not because of the specific details of the claims and denials, but because of the emotional truth that radiates from the situation. The panic, the heartbreak, the confusion, these are feelings every human recognizes, and that recognition creates connection. It creates empathy. It creates viral momentum. It transforms a single moment into a cultural touchpoint that people will remember long after this story fades from the headlines. And now we turn to you. What do you think about this emotional eruption that has taken over the internet? Do you believe that Don Juan's denial was the truth? Or do you feel the pain, the heartbreak, and the vulnerability that many say is written across Kandi's reactions? Do you see a misunderstanding blown out of proportion, or the emotional unraveling of someone whose trust has been deeply shaken? Your voice matters here. Your perspective is part of this conversation. So drop your thoughts below, your gut reaction, your emotional take, your honest opinion. Like this video if you felt the intensity of this story, share it with someone who's been following the situation, and make sure you subscribe, because stories like this, raw, emotional, and unforgettable, are exactly what we break down in depth. This saga is far from over, and together we will follow every twist, every tear, and every emotional ripple that unfolds next.